Hey guys, welcome back to the garage. What we're gonna be doing today is installing this OEM strut brace on my 2004 Hyundai Tiburon. The toughest part of getting this whole job done is going to be relocating the cruise control module, because with this particular strut brace, you do have to relocate it. That means either creating a custom bracket or doing what we're gonna do today. Let's do it. Okay, so in order to get this job done, these are all the tools that you're gonna need. Let's go ahead and go over that. We have a 10mm socket here. We have a basic Phillips head screwdriver. This is going to be the biggest thing that we're going to use to relocate the cruise control module. This is double-sided mounting tape. Make sure it's strong stuff. Of course, here we have some medium strength thread locker, the blue stuff. Here we have some just basic adhesive. This is going to help us keep that cruise control module in place. Of course, we have some scissors. Up here we have a torque wrench, which we're going to need in order to take on and off our strut tower mounting bolts. I'm not really too sure what size those are, so I'll let you know when I figure that out. And then of course, you're gonna need your strut brace. Okay, so the first thing that we're gonna do is start by removing our plastics that cover our strut towers. These right here are 10mm. There's 2 of them. Now we're gonna go ahead and do the other side. This side is a little bit bigger. It's pretty much all one piece. There's 3 10mm, and then there's one fastener that you need to undo with a Phillips head screwdriver. So there's 3 right there. And the last one is this Phillips head screwdriver, which looks like it's already off. All right, so that all comes off in one piece. Before I just start removing stuff, what I want to do is show why we have to relocate this cruise control module. If you'll notice, our OEM strut brace here is supposed to go on the back 2 screws of our strut tower. Unfortunately though, our cruise control module, which sits right here, is getting in the way. It hits and won't let it sit properly. So what we're gonna do is go ahead and remove our cruise control module. And I'm gonna show you how we're gonna do that. So in order to remove this, there's 3 screws. There's 2 on top, and then there's 1 down here on this lower bracket. So now once those are removed, you can see that I can actually just go ahead and pick this right up. That's nice and free. Next thing that we're gonna do is remove that bracket that was holding it down. But if you flip this around, there's 3 screws that are holding in this bracket. They are Phillips head screws. So we're gonna go ahead and remove all 3 of those. There we go. And the bracket comes right off. The next step is going to be cleaning. You cannot neglect this step, because what we're going to be doing is mating the cruise control module to the actual firewall itself. And if it's not clean, then it's not going to stick properly, and this thing is going to fall down into your engine bay, and you don't want that. So essentially, this is what our cruise control module is going to look like when it's done. It was up like this on the bracket, and essentially all you're doing is rotating it 90 degrees forward, like so. And if I go ahead and pick this up, that little lip on the firewall housing is what we're going to be setting it down on, and we're going to be putting adhesive tape on the bottom of this cruise control module, and it's going to sit flush against the firewall. All right, here's what we're going to be using next. This is our double-sided adhesive tape that we're going to be using in order to mount the cruise control module to the firewall. We're going to be putting this on the firewall and on the bottom of the cruise control module. We're also going to need some sealant here. We're going to be using this to fill in any gaps. And then the last thing that we're going to need is just some old rubber tubing. We're going to use this as cushion. That way the cruise control module doesn't hit the side of the strut tower or anything like that and damage it. So we're going to go ahead and use some of this. All right, so this is what we're working with our double-sided tape. Obviously this is set down on the back of the cruise control module. Make sure you press it in nice and firm, and then when we're ready, we're going to remove the top film so that it's nice and sticky. And we also did one on the bottom of the firewall there. So I didn't show this because it's pretty self-explanatory. Just cut it to size so that it's on the bottom here, all 3 sections, and then over there on the firewall. So pretty self-explanatory. Now what we're going to do is go ahead and cut a piece of tubing in half, and what we're going to do is place it right here, right on the side, because this right here is what's going to be sitting flush up against the side of our strut tower, and we don't want anything to get damaged. So let's go ahead and cut that piece of tubing. So it looks like we're only going to need about that much. It's probably about 1.5 inches. All right, so if you see that, I went ahead and took the rubber piece here and just cut it in half, because essentially what it's going to do is hug that plastic just like this like it is on my finger, like that. It's gonna hug around it, okay? All right, so now what I'm gonna do is peel all my adhesive tape here, because what we're gonna do next is mate it to the firewall. So now what we're gonna do is set this where we want it and then press it firmly in place. There we go. Okay, so we're gonna hold that there for a second. And I have my rubber tubing here, which I can go ahead and slide perfectly right in there. But before I do that, I'm gonna go ahead and use my silicone adhesive to do so. So let's let that sit for a second. I have my cut rubber tubing here and then my adhesive. So what I'm gonna do is take this adhesive and pour it right into the center. Doesn't have to be pretty, like so. And then I can go ahead and slide that down right over that plastic section. So now that we're all relocated, our strut brace is gonna sit perfectly right over top of that cruise control module. Look at that, no issues now. Okay, so let's go ahead and take off these strut tower bolts and get this thing mounted. Okay, so what you're gonna do is loosen the back two strut tower bolts. These are 14 millimeter, pretty self-explanatory. We're gonna do that on both sides. And now what we're gonna do is put the strut bar on. Boom, there we go. Sweet, fits perfectly right over top of that. Okay, so now let's go ahead. I'm gonna put these bolts back on here. Unfortunately, my camera dies as soon as we put this thing on there, but that's all right. We're gonna go ahead and switch over to the phone. So before we tighten these things down, what we're gonna do is, of course, use some medium strength thread locker on these bolts here. That way this stuff doesn't move. Okay, so the torque spec on these strut bolts here are roughly anywhere between 33 to 44 apparently. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and tighten the contact this side. Then I'm gonna do the other side before I go ahead and torque things down super tight. Okay, so now that both sides are to contact, I'm gonna go ahead and start with 30 foot-pounds before I do anything else. So let's go ahead and get these to 30. That's 30 there. Let's do the other side at 30. Now what we're going to do is torque this down to 40. And that, my friends, is our OEM strut brace all installed. I think it looks great. The cool thing is that it comes in blue, which matches the couplers on my air intake and also matches the car. So I think that looks fantastic. And another thing about this OEM strut brace is that it actually fits with the plastic covers that go over the strut mounts and everything like that. So we're gonna go ahead and put those back on, and I'll show you guys the finished product. All right, well, that's gonna do it for the install on this OEM strut brace. I like this cruise control little relocation, probably the best option for this because you don't have to move any of the cables or anything like that. It's roughly in that same position that where it was before, so you don't have to worry about adjusting the cables or anything. And from what I hear, this holds up really well. No one's ever had any issues. So anyways, thank you guys for watching. And if you have any questions about this install, leave them in the comments down below. Thank you. See you guys in the next one.